Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora, welcome. Just a quick intro to this upcoming talking blog. It's part 2. I'm continuing to talk about safety in the city for the Cosmic Wahine, and by that I mean every wahine that is living in the CBD, living in the wider Tāmaki Makaurau city, and what my experience of that living and lifestyle is like. If it's of interest to you, tune in. Let's get started. Firstly, I just want to add that safety in the city, or at least my safety in this city, I believe is contingent upon the financial security that I have, or the ability to be able to make a good income that allows me to live in relatively secure accommodation. Now, that in itself is tricky because we know that many women who are single, unaccompanied, we know also that Māori women do face a lot more scrutiny and probably discrimination and prejudice when they are looking for secure accommodation, whether that's in the central CBD. Did I say central CBD? I did. Whether it's in the CBD or it's in one of the suburbs of the wider Auckland city area, Tāmaki Makaurau. And what I've learned is that over the years, that when I was a student, of course, I was living in student accommodation, and it was cheap, it was affordable, but it was very vulnerable. And by that I mean, I was a mature full-time student, but I couldn't live in the student accommodation facilities that was available or on offer for the wider student community. So I chose to live in a lodge over in St. John's, and that offered, at the time that I moved in there in 2015, it offered really affordable student accommodation. But it was, in fact, mixed accommodation, which I didn't know anything about how lodges operated at that time. But I did know that I didn't have any tenancy rights. So that really made things very edgy for me. I was not at home during the day for the first 2 years that I was there. And then when I moved into my master's degree, of course, I was at home all the time. So I did start to notice things in the room that I lived in and around the public spaces of the facility that were damaged and broken, and had been that way for a long time, and there wasn't anything you could do about it. You could approach the building manager, the guy that managed the facility, and I might or might not have got any support to get things repaired, and it did take a very long time. So fast forward to today, the present time of 2025, what's safety in the city mean for me? So this is part 2. Kia ora, my name is Siana Raymond. I'm a writer and an author, and have taken on an extra task of doing a talking blog, which I'm wanting to just keep to 15 minutes straight. And I appreciate your tuning in to listen to this episode today. If it's of value to you, please like and subscribe. Please share it on. So safety in the city has become a very complex and layered process for me. I used to think of it as just being very straightforward about having things around me that were familiar and that I knew our exterior environment. By that I mean Queen Street and all of the other streets that run adjacent to it, and to basically have a very good understanding of the central CBD. So I studied that, but also I was born in Auckland in the 60s. I grew up in the wider Auckland area, and I was very fortunate to have friends, and we had parents who let us come into town to go to the flicks. And in the 70s, that was a miracle. It really was. The Auckland streets, the Tāmaki Makaurau Central was just so humming and thriving with hundreds of people. You were literally jostling down the streets. But it was also a thriving community. It had a lot of young people who were coming into town to go to the flicks. I think I remember seeing Jaws at the Flicks. There were so many others. There were a lot of kung fu movies that we used to come in to watch. But it was really safe. You could catch the bus, cheap and affordable, and, you know, your parents would give you $15 and that would just be like a miracle. You could have the most amazing time as an adolescent, and it was really safe. I can speak for myself and my neighbourhood friends and vouch for that because, hey, I'm still here today and thriving and, yeah, kicking it. So, yes, financial security, being able to have a decent income or an income coming in that allows me to rent a property that is in a relatively safe part of the CBD, in at least an apartment building that's got a building manager, that has a landlord/property manager that I'm able to communicate with when things need repairing or when there are issues in the building, and I have tenancy rights. So as I said, safety in the city has become complex and layered. Now, a few weeks ago, I watched a woman being approached by a guy on the main drag of Queen Street. The woman was beautiful and stylish, and he, well, I don't know how to describe him, and the other guy he was with. Let's just say he was not her type or demographic. But I watched him approach her and flatter her good looks. He asked for her phone number. She was very calm, but clearly disquieted by his actions. She gave him the brush off and he acted bravado. I really believe he thought he had a chance with her. Okay, so this sort of stuff happens everywhere. What's the big deal? It often doesn't just stop there, at least not for someone who lives and finds meaning in the CBD like myself. So just so there is some transparency between us, I helped to found the network called SPARA, and it is Stalking Prevention Awareness Resources Research Aotearoa. And the meaning behind doing that was during the COVID lockdowns, you know, during the mandates, the time of the mandates, it was a really odd and spooky, creepy time for many of us because we were locked down in facilities, in apartment buildings, everywhere, where many people, for their brains and minds, it was just like barbed wire wrapped around their legs and arms and restricting them. And people's psychologies and the way in which they wanted to interact with other people became really intense and extremely strange. And during that time, even though there was not a lot of stalking reports made to the police, this network that I helped to found was really a place where women could come to understand and research how to keep themselves safe in any part of their lives, especially where stalking was concerned. And this was in particular non-intimate stalking. So it's not about being in a relationship. It's about meeting somebody on one-off occasion, or you're at work, or you're in any other situation that's not in a relationship, and you are finding yourself being stalked and or monitored and or surveillanced by another person in your community. So when I see these types of interactions, I know that they are not one-off. They happen to one person but then get escalated with another person. In my last talking blog, I mentioned defensive walking. Now, that was one of the things that I really was very, very, I was very intense about that type of tool, because for many of us who are being stalked, we're being followed, or we're feeling not 100% secure as an unaccompanied female, defensive walking is really helpful. But the way in which you engage with your community, it means that you're not wearing headphones, you are not listening to music, you're not looking at your cell phone, you've got your cell phone in your hand if you need it, but mostly you are being really, really engaged and present in the moment. And it does mean that you observe what's to your left, you observe what's to your right, you observe what's ahead of you, you observe what's above, and you do observe what is behind you. How you implement that type of defensive walking is entirely subjective. It's totally up to you how you wish to do that. I do it And the benefit to me is that I have seen things in the city that I've never been aware of before. Little shops, I see more of the homeless, and I just, so that we're really transparent with one another, I am never ever have been harassed by those who are begging for alms on Queen Street. I'm never harassed by them, except one or two where it's been a little uncomfortable. But for the most part, many of them are very unwell and they're seated in the same place for hours on end, day after day. Those who are transient, those who are moving through the environment, are the ones that are more likely to cause me anxiety or stress. And for the most part, I really do try to avoid them. So the most important thing that I've learned is that there are places not to walk alone at any time of the day. And that's really, I suppose in some instances it is demographic dependent. But for the most part, I wouldn't, as I shared in a very earlier talking blog, Hobson Street and Nelson Street would be two places that I would be very careful of. How we dress can make the difference to how we are safe and mobile. To be stylish, and is it a matter of race? I'm not sure, but I certainly do, smart casual is the way that I like to look when I go out onto the street. I can't really do the grunge look. If I went out into the streets in my pyjamas and flip-flops, I would not have the same reception as someone who was from a different race or demographic. If they were an international person, that would be tolerated from them. But as a wahine Māori, I might get a different reception. Do I feel awkward being well-dressed and smart casual? When I see the homeless look at me with hopeful eyes due to my race and culture, that it's automatically suggested I'll be able to give them alms. Saying no is not a rejection, it's managing energy, distribution, and my boundaries. If a person isn't a local who walks the main drag regularly, navigating the space between supermarkets and food supplies for the best bargains, then freedom of whom to give to is an easy decision. Whereas the garden variety Cosmic Wahine, particularly myself, doesn't have that choice. That sounds very bizarre, I know, but when there is an expectation upon me from my own people, it means that there is subjectivity and objectivity about who you give to and when. Looking at the CBD and the way in which we live in the city today, and the way in which charity and the way in which hope and the continuation of aroha and maanakitanga is expressed, becomes a valuable lesson in how we achieve that goal, especially as myself, unaccompanied, walking down Queen Street, coming face to face with the realities of our people, being homeless, needing to shelter at night up at the Auckland Public Library up on Lawn Street, brings home the importance of how much it can be both a possibility and also a decline in when we give and why. So safety in the city at this point, in me saying it's become so late in the talking blog today that it is also about cultural safety. It's also about racial safety. It is also about spiritual safety and how I navigate that space here in Tamaki Makaurau CBD when it is our people who are reaching out for help and aroha, how much of maanakitanga can be expressed and when it can be expressed. This is the dilemma of being safe in the Auckland CBD, safe in the city. And that brings this talking blog to a close today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Pass it on and share it if you feel this episode has some value. I'm wanting to return in the coming weeks with further talks about cultural safety in the Auckland CBD as a Cosmic Wahine, and to further understand what it means to be financially abundant, to live safely in any city really, but it's predominantly the CBD. I'm planning to do a follow-up blog for this, and you'll be able to find that on my website, Waimātou. And until we meet again, through the grace and the great profound wisdom of the Courier of I, this is Sienna Raymond signing off for this talking blog, Safety in the City Part 2. I wish you safe journeys and safe steps through Taunaki Makaurau, Auckland CBD.